Our key issues project will be about digital afterlife services, what happens to our identities on social media after we die, and what ethical dilemmas arise because of this. Case study of online posthumous scheduling services, LivesOn and EterniMe. When we die, companies like EterniMe and LivesOn create and offer consumers online chatbots based on the user's digital footprint that seemingly offer both resurrection and immortality. These technological innovations that enable the deceased to stay in touch with the bereaved raise a few ethical concerns that will be examined through the consequentialist point of view. What are the consequences of digital afterlife services on both the bereaved and the deceased? The answer to this question will show that there are serious ethical issues related to these services. And because of that, we will try to offer some alternative principles to improve these services.
With the tagline, "When your heart stops beating, you'll keep tweeting," LivesOn is a web-based application that through algorithms enables users to keep their tweets going even after they have passed away. The application analyzes the user's original Twitter feeds, identifies patterns, tastes, and syntaxes to keep their Twitter accounts alive. The program uses algorithms to scrutinize the user's daily activity and create a digital version of that person, replacing them when they die. Described as a creepy service, EterniMe is another company that traces social media users' history to create a digital version. Through an algorithm, the person's memories could be reanimated, allowing the bereaved to Skype chat with the dead. EterniMe states, "We want to preserve for eternity the memories, ideas, creations, and stories of billions of people for the current and future generations." Digital afterlife startups work by transferring and replicating human life in digital form. However, this reduces the core value of human existence and personhood. The minds behind these services are driven by profit and wish to use death for economic gain. The economic interests of companies trying to monetize death brings to light other ethical concerns associated with grief bots. Privacy is a huge part of living in the digital world, and social media sites must not only ensure that their users' information is protected, but also provide them with privacy settings. But what happens when we die? We should have the right to be forgotten digitally and shouldn't have to live with the fact that our online presence may not only live on in our social pages, but also in active messages and tweets. Unless discussed prior to death, the deceased will get no say in what happens to many of their online accounts, and this is a major ethical concern regarding privacy. As we approach a future in which Facebook contains more dead profiles than live ones, and companies look to profit from this, it is imperative that we solidify who has the rights when it comes to our online presence.
The key dimension of identity seen in the online posthumous services is self as performative on social media. Government says that depending on social situations, people put on various faces or performances which are driven by context. Therefore, the data collected about the disease can be inaccurate, unauthentic, and detached from the disease true self. Since algorithms process only one aspect of the individual's life, the chatbot and the recreated person are not necessarily the real individual. They are disconnected from the authentic one who has their own story, uniqueness, value system, as well as their flaws that did not show on their online activities. Ethical concern raised by online posthumous services. Based on the consequentialist approach, our work will argue that these services carry some negative impact on both the bereaved and the deceased. These concerns are related to the questionable nature of algorithms as seen as unstable technologies. Secondly, these practices raise ethical concern about the dignity of the digital remains. The International Council of Museum Code of Professional Ethics states that human remains must be handled in accordance with their inviolable human dignity and requires that a similar approach need to be adopted for disease and the usage of their data. Finally, digital afterlife online posthumous services override the right of the deceased to be forgotten and the one for the bereaved to heal. Receiving voicemail messages from the deceased can affect the stability of the bereaved. They feel torn between the longing to be with the loved one, deceased, and the desire to heal and move on with their life. These practices can be debilitating to the bereaved, thus complicating the experience of the death of others. Therefore, online posthumous services must respect the right of the deceased to be forgotten as stated by Article 17 of the General Data Protection Regulation, as well as the right of the bereaved to heal and move on.
It is crucial that these ethical concerns are addressed as digital afterlife services grow in prominence and relevance in everyday practices of social media. In response to the dignity of digital remains, governments must impose fundamental requirements and policies within the digital afterlife industry, guaranteeing appropriate treatment of the deceased after their death. Afterlife online services should have better design systems aligned with the sensitivity to the issues surrounding death and dying. Future design needs to focus on systems that support and respect the bereaved, shed light on how technology is being used at the end of life, and how information about the deceased persons is presented or used. They should also respect the grieving process of the bereaved and offer services to help them find a way to thrive and live a meaningful life after the death of a loved one. The best way to allow for users' data privacy and protection would be the decentralization of platform operations, as it enables the operation of web infrastructure and services without centralized ownership or control. This essentially removes the power that large companies have over individual social media accounts. The importance of removing capital incentive from these larger companies cannot be understated. As Presidently put, these companies view death online as business practices and opportunities and are believed to be incentivized to keep deceased accounts within databases rather than have them removed. There should also be practices in place to prepare users for their digital death. Users should have a choice regarding who has access to their accounts after they die and how much information can be accessed. These services must respect the grieving process of the bereaved, as every individual grieves differently, and we cannot put a timestamp on grief. As such, transparency and accountability must be at the forefront of guidelines regarding the creation of these services. As the number of dead social accounts continue to grow and companies continue to monetize death, platforms must update and introduce new policies to protect the rights of both the deceased and the bereaved. The privacy and ethical concerns when it comes to allowing the bereaved to let go must be addressed in order to respect everyone's wishes and rights, both online and offline. Platform terms must ensure that the user has control of what happens to their online activity, including photos and chat histories, and that they have the option to permanently delete their account. Platforms must also ensure that if loved ones decide to use an afterlife service, the deceased's wishes on which information to release is respected, and their online friends and followers' information is kept protected from these third-party companies. Thank you.